Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third week of our series, Talking to Filipinos Who Have Broken Through Barriers. Another great interview with Mayor Arvin last week. That was such an awesome interview. He had a great message about having a voice and being more proactive in our community. We have another special guest tonight, but before we get to her, let's start with a little bit of business chat. Let's talk about choosing an industry. So, this is something that owners do not take lightly, obviously. It's something that you just don't do over the weekend. It requires a lot of research, could be expensive, and it involves meeting and learning people in your chosen industry. Traditionally, when you're choosing an industry, this is how the approach is. The first thing that you do is identify the industry that you're interested in. Okay, learn it, take a look at it, how do they make money? Things like that. Research the kinds of businesses and various business models within the industry. So, for example, if you're looking at a medical industry, for example, okay, what aspect of medical industry? Do you want to be a staffing agency? Do you want to be an elderly home care? Do you want to be a skilled nursing facility, for example? Do you want to be a hospital? So there's a lot of different things. And then within that, you look for different models that have been very successful. You perform a market research on the industry. That's how you learn about it. Okay, how do they get paid? How do they make money? What's the profit margin? How hard or easy it is to start that business? Or even hiring people. Okay, do we have enough people right now to hire for this particular industry? You analyze the competition. Course, why reinvent the wheel if you can find something that works really well? Just look at how your competitors make money, pay attention to the ones that are really successful, and see if it's something that you can incorporate with your own business plan, which leads to develop a business plan. Okay, make your own business plan, come up with a plan with success being the ultimate goal, of course. Now, once you've done that, you're going to go back and do more market research for other potential businesses or things that you can adjust within your business plan. Then, of course, you revise that plan. When you're all done with that, then you need to decide if you want to look for lenders or investors to enable to capitalize your business. And once you've decided and you've looked for partners or investors, or alone, obviously you start your business. Now, you've probably heard of the saying, do what you love and the money will follow. It's actually a great saying and it's true to some extent. However, you need to be mindful because, these are some steps that I'm going to advise to take extra before you follow the saying because it can easily turn into do what you love until your money runs out, right? Because you never know. The business that you choose or the industry that you choose might not be successful. So here are some important tips that you can add to that process when you're trying to decide what industry to do. You're passionate, yes, but are others passionate with the service or product that you have? So what I mean is, okay, you might fall in love with a product that you created and say, oh my God, this is the best thing ever created in the world. I'm sure everybody will like it. But are you really sure that everybody will like it? What if not? Then of course you can't sell it. That's the thing. Or how about a service? You're so convinced that this service is needed. You are so passionate about it, but are you sure people will really need this service? So be passionate about what you love, but do research on it. Okay? If the industry that you looked at or you're wanting to go into is a niche market, always ask yourself, has somebody else thought about this? Okay, and not only that, okay, have they acted upon it and are they doing it? Because you want to find out if there's still a market for you. It could be a niche market, but if somebody else is already doing it, then okay, you might not be able to take over what they're doing. The third would be find out if the market is saturated. Okay, you want to open, let's say, a care home. Okay, well, how many care homes are here? Are there enough patients for everybody? Or maybe, if that's what you're truly passionate about, you can do it in a different location. You can find a different area that's underserved with care homes. Understand the cost on starting the business. Very, very important. You don't want to run out of money or not have enough resources before you can start your business. So it's always important to understand what will it take for you to take this business from point A to getting it opened and up and running. This one is very important. Know your limits. Know exactly what you're good at, what your strengths, and don't try to do things that you're not, familiar with. Bring in an expert. You can always hire somebody. Ask your partner. Ask for help. Ask a mentor. Know your limits. It's a very thing. It's just about keeping yourself humble, right? And accepting that we don't know everything. So, last one is always ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There's so many times people have come up to me and said, Sonny, I have this great idea for business, but I don't know where to start. And they sat on that question for a long time, but never asked for help. And I've always tell them, well, why don't you just ask somebody? You could ask me, and I could point you to somebody who can at least help you. So don't be afraid to ask for help once you get stuck. Now, here are some more tips that we can add to that traditional way of steps on starting your business. First one is self-discovery. Figure out how to transform that passion that you have for this particular product or service into becoming a business. Sometimes it's hard because you can envision it, but you don't really know the whole process. So it really needs to involve self-discovery and probably asking a lot of different people for help. Inspiration. What made you or what inspired you to open this business or even think about opening this business? What's the purpose behind it? And of course, don't forget, stick to that inspiration. Stick to that goal. Observation. Always look for unmet needs or opportunities. It's a great way to think about when you're starting a business. Okay, what do we actually need here? And believe me, I've used this story so many times, but there's a business here that will only work here in Vegas. But it happened because they were looking at it and they said, what it is basically they recycle linens from the hotels and making it into rags. So now they don't have to buy rags. They just recycle their old linens that they were going to throw anyway into rags. And who have ever thought about doing that business? But this owner saw the need for that business. And then lastly, don't be afraid to imitate. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. If there's a business model that's working really well, just copy it and then maybe incorporate it to the way you do business and, just kind of put your style into it. But if you find a good business model that's working, just copy it. Just imitate. Anyway, all right. So those are my tips for you in choosing an industry. We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk to our guest. All right. We'll be right back.
This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio. PHLV Radio.
All right, welcome back. So we're going to meet our third guest for the month. I'm very excited. It's a great friend of mine. Her name is Agnes Botelho. She is the Chief Deputy DA currently. Agnes, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm great, Sonny. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, it's my honor. Thank you so much for coming. So in this series, we're talking to Filipinos that have broken through barriers. Now, obviously, you're an attorney.
Yes.
Talk to me. When did you decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to go for a district attorney's office?
Well, I started out wanting to just be a lawyer.
Okay.
And I know that's not like a typical, necessarily Filipino field that we think about. We always say, nurses or teachers. My dad is a teacher.
Okay.
And my mom owned a small business in the Philippines. But I was in ninth grade and I had to write some kind of paper on the death penalty.
Oh.
And whether we were for or against it. And I'm not going to tell you what my position was at the time.
Sure.
But I loved writing. I loved writing about it. I thought it was, so thought-invoking. And I thought, well, now we are going to have to argue it in school. And I loved arguing even more. I already knew I liked to argue with my mom and my sister. But this was a whole other kind of arguing with rules. And it seemed like such a good fit for me that I joined our national mock trial, or our high school mock trial team.
Nice.
I grew up on Kauai, which is in Hawaii. It's a small, small island. And we had 3 high schools. And it just so happened my high school, Kauai High School, had a mock trial team. And it had been pretty successful up until that point. I joined the team. I was team captain, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. Led our team to some championships, our regional championships, state championships, and then we went to the national mock trial champions. And we got the highest that we ranked was 13th in the nation out of 52 teams. And I was given the Outstanding Litigator Award my senior year. And so that was kind of one of those things where, I found something or had the opportunity to try something. I loved it and I pursued it, found out I was good at it, and it eventually led to my career at the DA's office. And so, of course, I had to go to school after high school.
Of course.
Did college at UNLV and law school at Boyd School of Law. And I think with any kind of profession, even with a business, you're kind of drawn to a certain side. In this case, there are defense attorneys. I was always drawn to criminal law. Let's start with that.
Okay.
And then I always felt better with mock trial. You had to argue both sides. You had to argue, prosecution and the defense. And I always felt better as a prosecutor. And I don't know why. I know how to think about it from a defense point of view, but I liked advocating for victims in our community, for the bigger general picture. And so
nothing wrong with that. That's
yes,
awesome.
yes. It was just kind of like where I, tended to side. I did an externship at Maricopa County, which is a huge district attorney's office in Arizona. After my second year of law school, I got into their sex crimes unit, and I did 3 trials while I was there. I was just a law student.
Wow.
Certified by the Supreme Court, did trials. Of course, I fell in love with that. And I applied for a job there and here at the Clark County District Attorney's Office, got a job offer at both, but stayed here because my family's here.
Good. Well, we're glad you did.
Yeah, I'm glad I did too.
When you got that job, so now you're in your journey. And of course, fast forward, now you're also running for judge.
Yes.
But getting that job, how did you feel? Take me back to when you say, now, or actually when you were named Deputy District Attorney. Yeah.
It was, talk about a dream come true, because I had to work so hard to get myself through college and law school. It really felt like at some point I felt like I was going to have to give up on this dream because, I needed to work full time while I was in law school. And people always tell you, don't do that. Don't do that, because you need to focus on your studies. Well, I didn't have that luxury. And so I worked, on the weekends. I had a little tutoring job where I tutored kids at the library, elementary school kids at the library. I worked for MGM call reservations. I had multiple jobs all throughout law school. I worked for a defense attorney, and it was so hard. It was hard being so broke. Yeah. And of course I had to take out financial aid to pay for law school. So once I finally got offered the position, and then I showed up to work, and I'll tell you, I didn't have any suits. I didn't have anything really to wear. And I just thought, I mean, eventually but I had gotten my dream job. This was all I ever wanted to do. I've only ever wanted to be a prosecutor. And so I think my mom gave me a little bit of money to buy, like, I don't know, a skirt and a top to wear to my first day on the job at the DA's office. And to this day, I still can't believe that I do what I do. And the journey isn't that far away from me still. Still, as you indicated, I'm running for judge now.
Yeah.
I've been a DA for almost 15 years.
Wow.
And so I'm comfortable. I have the experience. I've done it for a long time. But if you were to ask me, hey, this, like you just did, you asked me about this journey, I can tell you it was a very tough one. It was hard. It
makes it more exactly. There you go. It makes it even more worth it now that you got it. So perseverance, I guess, runs in your veins, and it's a common thing with our series guests pretty much. Tell us about the power of perseverance and really following that dream. You mentioned there were times you thought about it, am I really going to do this? But what kept you going? What's that thing inside that said, you know what, I'll do this?
Yes. My cousin and I talk about this a lot. You've met her. She's a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
And we think, we call it hustle,
Okay.
she and I. And we just say, you're really hustling right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm campaigning, she's like, you're just hustling. Okay. When she wants to get into a certain portion of Metro, LVMPD, I just tell her, you're just hustling. That's the hard part.
Yes.
The perseverance, it comes from this drive. I felt like becoming a DA or becoming an attorney, and not just any attorney, but a prosecutor, was a calling. Mm-hmm. It really was. When I worked in college, before I went to law school, I was at Mandalay Bay Group Reservations.
Okay, wow.
And
Yeah.
it was very easy to, promote at Mandalay Bay and the casinos because, if you're personable enough and you do your work well enough, you will ascend. You can get all the way up to vice president of, whatever casino, which would be a fantastic job for anyone. The money was good. And so I almost fell into that trap of like giving up on wanting to be this public servant, being a DA, because I was making good money.
Sure.
And I could promote. And I was getting, the better shifts at work. But ultimately, before I put in, my notice at Mandalay Bay, I thought long and hard about it. And I thought, you have to go for it because it never felt right. I was happy and content with the money and the lifestyle and the living.
Sure.
But I felt like there was this internal drive or this yearning for something different. And I've always felt called to this profession, to being a prosecutor. And so as much as I wanted to give up and just, kind of accept destiny as being, maybe getting on the executive board at a casino or running a business, I had to think back to that first time that I wrote that paper and the first time that I argued or the first time that I won that award, my senior year of high school. And I've been chasing that feeling and that feeling of accomplishment up until this point, truly.
No, that's an amazing story because you always look back to that moment where, okay, you decided that this is what you want to be.
Yes.
And this is your dream.
Yes.
Now that you're doing it, you're deputy DA. What's your feeling? Relief, joy, pride?
Oh, it's pride like you would not believe. And I've gotten used to this position, and so I always think I take it for granted. But when, let's say I talk to my mom or I see my mom telling people about me, because, we're our own worst critic, really. I'm 15 years into the job. I think, should I be doing something else? And my mom is a typical Filipino mom where she doesn't ever really tell you she's proud of you.
Yeah. Yeah, you know that. I can relate.
You know that, right? Like I would get straight A's or something. I got an A, Mom, in biology or math, and it was the hardest, subject for me. She's like, "Who else got an A?" And were you the highest percentage?
Yeah.
Was it a 99%? Why not 100? That kind of thing. And so I feel pride when I'm in the courtroom and I'm representing our community and the victims, of course, who have been wronged. But I also feel pride when I see my mom talking to someone And I've started bringing her, especially with the campaign, and even a little bit before that, started bringing her out to some events. And it's just different watching her talk about me, because one, I didn't know she felt that way, and two, that pride kind of translates to me. I'm like, oh, my mom is proud. I am doing good work. She is like happy to tell people that this is what her daughter does.
That's awesome.
And then when I look at the people that she's talking to and their reactions, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're what? You work for the government? I don't think my job is that cool anymore, but they do.
Yeah.
And they think, and their daughters are like, they tell me, oh, my daughter's a doctor. And I think, oh my gosh, congratulations. They're like, oh, but you're a DA?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's not even. I think the doctor is cooler. I would have done that. Probably more money in it. But I feel pride. I feel like I'm representing our community to some extent. At the DA's office, I'm the only Filipina. Oh, no, actually, no. Victoria Villegas, she's getting ready to retire. She's actually one of my mentors.
Good.
And so, we're two Filipinas, probably one of like a handful of Filipina lawyers in the criminal side. I know we have some on the civil or family or immigration side. But I feel proud.
That's good.
That's
awesome.
Yes. I feel accomplished.
Yeah. Well, here in Nevada, since you mentioned it, Filipinos have really started making their mark, especially in the healthcare industry and education. How do you like other communities to view Filipinos? You kind of mentioned it because you feel proud representing our community, but what kind of messaging do you want to say, or how do you want Filipinos to be viewed, pretty much? Yeah.
I mean, I want people to see us for who we really are. And the way I see us is, I was born in the Philippines. And so I was born in Toledo.
Okay.
And we didn't move to Hawaii until I was 8 years old. And just like I remember the struggle, getting to law school or even getting the job at the DA's office, I very much remember the struggle in the Philippines. And I remember, and I can point out so many different visions in my own head, memories really, of my mom working 2-3 jobs to, provide for my sister and I.
Yes.
And she was educated. I mean, she went to, school. Of course, her family prioritized education, as she did with us. I think Filipinos, sometimes we mind our own business too much. And, we don't get as involved in things that don't really call us to action. And so, we're perfectly fine working our 2 jobs or our 1 job, providing for our family, making sure that our children grow up to be successful.
Very true.
That seems to be the priority. But people don't necessarily see that, unless they go to like a graduation where the valedictorians, the Filipino moms, egging them on or cheering them on. But I would like people to recognize that, we're not just the housekeepers at the casinos or the nurses or even teachers. We are starting to make our mark in other areas, and professional areas at that. And when I was thinking about running for office, I mean, I'm a very reluctant candidate, Sonny. I think you know that about me. I'm perfectly content, just sitting in my office, prosecuting cases. But there was a call to action. I think, of course, I believed we needed more balanced judges on the bench who would take community safety and victims' rights a little more seriously than I've seen some of the judges. Not all, but some. And so that's what made me decide to run for office. But on the opposite side, on the more personal side of that, because that's the professional side, I looked at the makeup of our judiciary, of the bench, and outside of Judge Cheryl Moss, who retired from family court, and Judge Cedric Kearns, who is not going to run again for election in municipal court, we don't have any more Filipinos judges. We don't have any Filipino judges. We don't have any Filipina judges. And so I thought to myself, well, here I'm already being called to action professionally. I think personally it would be good. It would be good not just for me, but for our community, for kids, for my nieces to see that they can run for office.
Yes.
You can have your face plastered on signs everywhere and be embarrassed, because I don't think people. I have a lot of aunties, not just Filipino because of the Filipino side, but the Hawaii side too.
Yeah.
And they always think it's so cool because I think we don't think that for our community. We don't think past a certain point in our community. We want people to do it, but we don't necessarily realize it for ourselves.
Very true.
That it's a possibility.
No, it's just, I was talking to Mayor Arvin last week. The same thing. That's what he said. Yeah, we need to do more. Represent us. Pretty good. So I commend you for that. So thank you.
Oh, it hasn't been easy.
You mentioned, you're doing this also for your nieces, of course. So, what would be your best, I guess, advice to young Filipinos who are looking at different industries and looking to break through in that industry?
I think every one of us inside has a calling. It's that passion. It's the thing that you think, you said earlier, if you do what you love, the money will follow. And, that's not necessarily true for government jobs. I will attest to that because I think I can make a lot more money, not working for the government. But it's not money that drives me either. For young people, I always tell my nieces, you have to do what you love, what you are called to do. Because if you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life.
Very true.
And I think to myself, well, when I'm in trial and I'm up 24 hours and I don't sleep and I don't eat, I'm okay with that because I'm doing something that I like and that I love. And I think it's doing good for our community. So my advice to younger people, younger Filipinos, would be to take what that is, whatever it is. And sometimes our parents, I don't mean to dog our parents in some sense or criticize. Our parents will tend to tell you that the only acceptable, professions would be certain types.
Yes.
And they try to steer you that way. I mean, that is not just a stereotype. I think it's the truth.
Yeah.
But if you feel a calling, if you want to be a graphic artist, if you like to work with videos, if you want to work on TikTok, if you want to, open a business, do it. But of course, with the advice that you said earlier in mind, in terms of choosing, do what you love, but also figure out a way to make money doing it. Because, if you're doing what you love, but you're not making any money, you're not going to be very happy. Or your family's not going to be very happy.
Yes.
So figure that out. That's why I think education is a good thing. Because while you have, now I'm educated, I can always be a lawyer. I'm never going to get rid of these skills.
Yes.
And this experience and this education that I have, such that I have the ability to now, pivot and do something else. I can always come back to this. Your education is always going to be there. But once that's in place, then you can pursue your passion.
There you go.
And try to make a living that way.
That sounds good. Great advice. Agnes, thank you so much for coming to the show. Good luck and continued success. Good luck in the campaign.
Thank you.
We're rooting for you. You know that?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
All right. Everybody, that is our show for tonight. Thank you again to Agnes for coming to the show. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.